It's Monday, June 15th, 2026, 6:30. We are starting the meeting for the Development and Government Relations in Holyoke City Hall Chambers. We have Mike Sullivan, Councilor Mike Sullivan, the co-chair of the committee in the chamber. I am Richard Purcell, the chairman of the committee. We have Nicole Masonette online, and we have Israel Rivera online. So we have a quorum. I have to read a motion since we have counselors that are online, and a motion to take a roll call vote that for the purposes of this meeting would be applicable to all motions to remove an item from the table, place items on the table, package items, open, continue, or close a public hearing, or suspend the rules unless there's an objection.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'll accept item number one's,
Yeah,
a motion to open up item number one.
yeah, motion to open a public hearing for a special application for Alan Finney for the creation of the Finney Family Cemetery.
I heard a second, and this is a public hearing, special permit for application to Alan Finney for the creation of a Finney Family Cemetery at 2 Finney Road. We have our documentation. We have all the parameters, and we have one document from the Board of Health, and this is from our Board of Health Director, Colton Gorelli. This is addressed to our City Council Assistant, Jeffrey. I finally got the plans digitized and attached. They aren't perfect, but hopefully good enough. We follow the process outlined on the MassGOV website, and we had them dig 2 deep holes, observation pits, with us to present and determine the soil composition and groundwater depth. There were no indications of groundwater in the pits, reduction, oxidation, ponding, etc. We then had them perform a survey by a professional surveyor and had the survey plan submitted to us, attached along with the proposed location for the burial site. I went with Maggie, our conservation director, this week, and she did not find anything of concern. Lastly, the plans are now with the Mass DEP drinking water program to determine whether there are any concerns regarding public water supply. I should hear back from them soon. Please let me know if you have any questions or need anything else from me. Colton Gorelli, Health Director, Board of Health, Holyoke. And this was dated Friday, June 12th. Jeffrey, did we hear anything back from Mass DEP?
Not yet. My understanding, it might be a little bit more time.
And do you think we might be able to go forward without the Mass DEP?
I believe you have the applicant here, but I wouldn't want to advise on what you should do as far as waiting for Mass DEP. My understanding from the Board of Health is that's one of the approvals you should wait for, but that's up to the committee.
Councilor Sullivan.
Yeah, my thoughts would be to go ahead and approve the special permit pending approval from Mass DEP.
I'll second that motion.
Second.
Councilor Devine?
Yeah, I agree, but you certainly have been, waiting a while.
Your mic.
Microphone.
They've been waiting a long time, so I agree. I don't see why we can't continue it, approve it until that comes in, and we'll bring it to the city council tomorrow.
Are there any other questions to come before the committee? Are there,
So,
sorry,
you want to close the public hearing?
right, we're going to do that, but I'm just making sure. Are there anybody else in the chambers that object to this, the closing of this, or have anything else to say about the special, the public hearing? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion.
Motion,
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
We do a roll call, Jeffrey?
Yes.
Counselor Sullivan?
Yes.
Counselor Rivera?
Yes.
Counselor Masonette?
Yes.
Counselor Purcell is a yes. With that, we approved your special permit and the public hearing is all set. We're just waiting on the Mass DEP for their approval. All right, you're welcome. Thank you for coming in. Sorry for the long process that it took to get here. Right.
Well, I think we still have to send it to the full council.
Oh, I'm sorry, one more thing. We're going to send this to the full city council for tomorrow's vote. So the whole city council still has a vote on it. But the committee's report is we vote in favor of it. That was easy, right? Took us long enough. Have a great evening. You're welcome.
Mr. Chair?
Yes?
So should I understand that the approval will come with one condition, that work shall not begin until approval from Mass DEP is acquired?
That is correct. Thank you.
All right.
I'll accept the motion to remove item number 2 off the table.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item number 2, filed by Councilor Panich, ordered that the council approve the attached license agreement between the city and the Holyoke Housing Authority for the installation of the Valley Bike Station. In chambers with us, we have Matt Mainville from the Holyoke Housing Authority. Are there any questions? Matt, would you like to come to the microphone and have?
On the right-hand, your left-hand side, right?
I just heard.
Is that
There you go,
better?
you're on,
All
you're
right. Matthew Mainville, Executive Director, Holyoke Housing Authority. This is pretty straightforward. It's a partnership between Valley Bike, the City of Holyoke, and the Holyoke Housing Authority. We were approached several weeks ago about providing this license agreement so that they can install, I think it's 12 by 8 pad for the same thing that we've seen around the city. It's going to be on the corner of Cherry and Leary, closer up to the new Holyoke Community College. It's got good access to sidewalks, et cetera, et cetera. Based off of what happens this evening, I'll bring it to my board tomorrow for full ratification.
And can I ask a question? You have any questions? Anybody have a question?
I just wanted to make sure, reading this, there's actually no cost to the taxpayer in this?
No cost. I think the installation will be completed by the DPW, but I think that's the common practice for the installation of these across the city.
Right, it says, this is interesting, through a mass gaming funds grant?
Yeah, that again, this just landed on my desk about 3 weeks ago, and so the grant has been funded. I think there's a deadline for expenditure of the dollars, and so this just came via from Eric Nakajima and his office to my desk a couple of weeks ago, and so we're just trying to act expeditiously on it so we can expend those grant dollars.
Yep.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for the special,
Mr. Chair, if I may?
yes, Councilor Rivera, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to recognize, real quick, this is close, like right across where the Motor Village area is, right?
Yeah, it's going to be, if you go into Bowden Village on Lower Leary, it's one way. As you come back out on Leary, it'll be kind of to your right, like I said, on the corner of Cherry Street and Leary.
Awesome, thank you for that. So I just wanted to say that that's actually a benefit to that community in a sense. I know for myself, living in the flats and having to walk uptown to Main Street or coming to High Street or whatever things are going on downtown, made it a little easier for me being closer in the flats, but it was a long walk. But I know a lot of people that grew up in Bowden Village, and for them, they couldn't really access it as much. because of how far transportation would be. And I feel like with the bikes, it's creating a new wave of transportation for people from Bowden Village and Jarvis area to be able to come downtown a lot more freely, if it makes sense. So thank you for bringing this to the table, even though it fell on your desk.
No, there was a thoughtful process that happened behind the scenes before it landed on my desk, but I couldn't agree more.
Counselor Devine?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak in favor of this as well, and basically, the same thing that Councilor Rivera said. When I was growing up, it was the exact opposite. We had to come from High Street down to the flats to go to the swimming pool, so it's kind of the reverse, but I understand completely what he's saying.
And I have just a few comments, not really questions. Thank you for doing it at Baldwin Village. That's an important asset to that community. Are your plans to do any more at the rest of the housing areas in Holyoke?
To be honest with you, I think this is the last expenditure of the dollars that the city has through that grant process, so I'm not aware of any, but we'd be open to the opportunity for sure.
And, there's other ways if you don't have the income to rent the bikes, they have special programs to help the residents get the use of those bikes for a better rate.
Yeah, so I think that as part and parcel of this whole process is we'll be doing a lot of informational handouts up at Bowden Village, so those folks that are up there will be able to take advantage of it.
And if you can actually lobby the Valley Bike, the newer bikes that they have in Northampton and Amherst are better than the blue ones that we have here in Holyoke. So lobby them for the good ones.
I'll try.
The new ones are really special.
Very cool.
Are there any other questions? I'll accept the motion.
Motion to approve the attached license agreement.
I'll second that.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Do we have to do a roll call, Jeffrey?
Yes.
Counselor Sullivan?
Yes.
Counselor Rivera?
Yes.
Counselor Masonette?
Yes.
Counselor Purcell is a definite yes. With that, we have approved the license agreement between the City of Holyoke Housing Authority and the installation for the Holyoke Valley Bike Edition.
Tomorrow night.
And we will bring it up at tomorrow night's City Council meeting for full council approval. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Motion to take up item number 3.
There's been a motion to take up item number 3 and seconded. Item number 3 is filed by Councilor Purcell, Thalheimer, Anderson Burgos, and Panich. Ordered that the City Council declare its support for the attached resolution urging support for rent stabilization to protect tenants and neighborhoods. And I'd like to read the resolution into the record, please. City of Holyoke in the year 2026. Excuse me for my voice, I apologize. Resolution urging support for rent stabilization to protect tenants and neighborhoods. Whereas the rapidly escalating cost of housing in Holyoke has created profound instability for renters, putting seniors, essential workers, families with children, and other tenants at risk of displacement and housing insecurity. And whereas residents across Holyoke cite housing affordability as a top concern as of 2023, 47% of Holyoke renters are housing cost burdened, spending 30% or more of their income on housing costs. And for those, 23% are severely cost burdened, paying 50% or more. And whereas housing instability and displacement negatively impact the community in many ways, including destabilization of neighborhoods, harms to the physical and mental health of tenants, and disruption of classrooms in local schools. And whereas rent stabilization is the only possible policy that can make the rapid and broad impact necessary to mitigate widespread displacement and housing instability. And whereas stabilizing rents can have an additional positive impacts, such as boosting the economy by enabling tenants to spend more in local businesses, and whereas a change in state law is necessary to address this urgent problem due to the current prohibition on rent stabilization policies in Massachusetts. And whereas modern rent stabilization policy instituting a statewide limit on rent increases has been proposed as an inventive petition for the November 2026 ballot. And whereas the state legislature is also considering legislation to enable local option rent stabilization, and whereas both of these rent stabilization proposals seek to limit annual rent increases to the consumer price index with a cap of 5% per year, and whereas these proposals accept owner-occupied buildings of 4 or fewer units, recognizing the problem of rapidly escalating rents is primarily driven by large-scale corporate landlords, and whereas these proposals encourage the development of new housing units by exempting them newly constructed buildings during the initial period of operation. Now therefore be it resolved that the Holyoke City Council hereby declares its support for both an initiative petition to protect tenants by limiting rent increases and an act enabling cities and towns to stabilize rents and to protect tenants, and be it further resolved that the city clerk is hereby requested to transmit a copy of this resolution to the Attorney General, all members of Holyoke's delegation in the Massachusetts Legislature, the State Senate, and the House Speaker of the Massachusetts State Legislature, the Mayor of Holyoke, and the Governor of the Commonwealth. Are there any questions? Seeing no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Well,
I'm sorry, you got one.
I would just like to make a few comments. I'm sure I'm going to be on my own here, but the problem I have with the proposed rent control in place, right now, if you take an apartment with 1960s cabinets, fixtures, appliances, and it becomes vacant and you redo it and offer it a new rent price, with proposed rent control, that current price would be locked in forever despite the improvements that were done. So there'd be no impetus for anybody, any of these landlords, to improve any of their existing stock. So I got a list of about 7 or 8 different reasons, but we had a housing crash back in 2008, if everybody can remember, in Springfield and Holyoke. It risks doing the same thing. While I do see a need for more affordable housing and to keep it affordable, I don't think the current law that they're trying to put in place will accomplish that, and I think it could do more harm than it could do good.
That it?
That's it.
Councilor Revere, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I think for me, there's a difference. I think here we're talking about rent stabilization for this resolution. The proposed bill, or the proposed language for the bill, is about rent control. So I think there's 2 different things we're kind of putting together here and mixing, and it's important to make sure that we understand what the difference is. So I think, is there anyone here from neighbor to neighbor to be able to kind of like expand on the difference? Because it's important for us to be able to understand what the difference is between rent stabilization and what they're talking about versus what is being proposed at the state level with regards to rent control. This particular resolution is speaking specifically about rent stabilization and being able to protect tenants in a time where they really do need some protecting, as we've seen what had happened on High Street currently, which is a specific situation that, I mean, unfortunately had to be brought to light in a certain way, but fortunately it was, because we were able to catch on as a community and hopefully make some fixes to make sure that something like that doesn't happen again in the city. but without certain protections or mechanisms put in place, which is what I'm assuming that is some of this is trying to advocate for, it's going to be very difficult for the community or just even the city department heads that provide these services to be able to keep up. So I guess if there's someone present from neighbor to neighbor, it would be great for them to expand on what the difference is of the rent stabilization they're putting forward versus the rent control that's at the state level.
So it's on the will of the body to open up a public comment. Do I hear a motion?
Yep, motion to hear from any members of the public that wish to speak on this.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Would a member from neighbor to neighbor like to have public comment? Would anybody like to have any public comment, not just neighbor to neighbor?
Hello. Okay. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeanette Rivera, or Holyoke organizer for Neighbor to Neighbor. And thank you, Councilor Rivera, for bringing up that question again. I did intend to speak on that. I wanted to clarify that this legislation is supporting a resolution called an act enabling cities and towns to stabilize rents and protect tenants. It is not a rent control bill. The word and language in the bill is rent stabilization because that is what it seeks to do, protect tenants by limiting rent increases, not having a full stop. They are allowed to increase rents for renovations if needed, but at a reasonable and stable rate. And the bill, to be clear, would allow municipalities to develop what works for their municipality. So Holyoke could design and implement what works for Holyoke. I want to be very clear. So we do have two options on this resolution. One is to pressure our legislative body to support this bill, which would give the city of Holyoke more power on what it enacts. But also, I have a bag full of hundreds of signatures right now of people who want to see it on the ballot. So it's most likely going to be on the ballot, which will be another option that would be a blanket enactment across the state. So those are two different things that could happen. And if you send this resolution out to the State House, that could pressure them to vote in favor of it. And that's why this resolution is out there. I'm going to continue. There was a couple other things that came up. So some residents have heard the argument from some councilors that rising government spending, taxes, and fees are what drives rent increases, and that if we simply reduce our government, housing will become more affordable. But that explanation does not match what many residents and renters are facing, rent increases that are 10, 20, and even 30%. If taxes alone were driving rents, those numbers would be much closer together. The reality is that rents are being set by what the market will bear, not simply by what it costs to operate a building. Rent stabilization addresses this by placing reasonable limits on how quickly rents can increase, giving families, seniors, and working people predictability and time to plan. It doesn't solve every problem in our housing system, but it directly addresses one of the biggest causes of displacement: sudden rent increases that force people out of their homes, neighborhoods, schools, and support networks that they build their lives around. Rent stabilization fixes displacement by slowing it down and preventing families from being priced out faster than their incomes can keep up. We've also heard concerns about property rights, but I want to point out that we already regulate housing through building codes, health standards, lead laws, occupancy requirements, and zoning. The question is not whether housing should be regulated. The question is whether communities should have the ability to protect residents from displacement. And that is what Bill S. 1447 seeks to do. It does not impose rent stabilization statewide. It simply gives cities like Holyoke the local option to decide for ourselves what protections make sense for our community. There may be speakers that talk about a certain study that projects the impacts on property values. But I want to point out that that study does not measure the cost of doing nothing. And that displacements of families, loss of community stability, and the growing housing insecurity that Holyoke residents are already experiencing. This resolution is a declaration that Holyoke believes in stability, that each of you believe that children should have stable schooling, elders should be able to remain near their support networks, and workers and residents should be able to remain in their chosen communities. This resolution is not about reducing the trauma that comes when people lose their homes through no fault of their own. Right now, families are struggling. Rents continue to rise, and displacement continues to happen. Doing nothing is not a solution. So I urge you, council, to support this resolution, and I also have members here who would like to speak.
Thank you.
So I have English copy. She's going to read and she's going to speak in Spanish, if that's all right.
Thank you.
And I wanted to give that to you.
Thank you.
Oh,
This is a different one.
I'll be quick. I don't have a lot to add. I'm James. I'm a Ward 3 resident, James Lewis.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure you identified
Yep.
yourself.
I was here a couple weeks ago for the town council meeting. I talked a lot about my personal experience that I am a resident facing bankruptcy, and that means I'm really committed to renting for the immediate future. Obviously I can't go back and change my fiscal decisions over the years, and some of those were unplanned, related to health. But big picture, there are a lot of Americans, Holyoke residents. The national average is about 1 in 10 folks will face a bankruptcy at some point during their lifetime. And, that means a certain commitment to renting. And, I'd really just like to have an affordable way to do that and stay in my residence. I don't really have much more to add related to Jay's commentary. I very much support all of those notes. The major issue here, I do want to specifically address Councilor Rivera's comment about rent stabilization. The current language on the title of the bill that's in subcommittee or committee doesn't specifically mention rent control in the name of the bill. It's rent stabilization. But obviously there's been different versions proposed, and it's in process. It's in committee. It would be great to see a legislative process move forward and get to a place where the state legislature takes this issue seriously and doesn't wait until the people vote in the referendum, because that will limit their ability to make changes. I looked through some of the data there. It looks pretty good in terms of the bill's text, in my view. I would be happy with either version of the bill, either the bill or the referendum. That's what the language of this proposal is. Again, I wholeheartedly recommend that you push this forward and send this back to the state legislature to get some action. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Anybody else? Ryan?
Hi, councilors. Ryan McCullum, Western Mass native. And I know I don't know if he's online. I have a colleague online named Connor Units. He's on a train, so I don't know if Connor could go first or if he wants me to go. I don't know if he could speak up via Zoom.
He's not here, though.
He's not there? Okay. So let me go. Oh, there he is.
He has his hand up on Zoom.
Okay, thank you.
I'll go after Connor.
Connor? Connor Eunice.
Thank you all. I appreciate it. My name is Connor Units. I am the chair of Housing for Massachusetts, which is the campaign opposed to this ballot question. And so I want to be clear about a couple things, because this resolution, while the focus of this conversation has been on the legislation, this resolution also addresses the ballot question. I'd first like to correct something that was just said about the proposed legislation and the ballot question, but it does not provide the opportunity for Holyoke or any other community to make its own rules regarding rent control. It sets a cap, even the legislation, while it does, the legislation allows a city to opt into rent control, it sets a cap that the city cannot adjust of CPI or 5%, the same as the ballot question. This is not an ability for the city to make its own policies. It's an ability for the city to opt in to this specific policy. That is the fact. Second, the ballot question itself, which is also contained in this resolution, would create the most restrictive statewide rent control measure in the entire country. It is so extreme, in fact, that the proponents of the ballot question have already offered a compromise that would significantly scale back their proposal, that would raise the cap almost double what is proposed in the ballot question, that would allow cities and towns to opt in, that would remove vacancy control from the proposal. All of these things show you just how extreme this proposed ballot question is. It is, I would also like to point out, provides, despite what someone said earlier, it does not provide, either the legislation nor the ballot question, provide any opportunity for property owners to recover the cost of investment or renovation. There is no proposal, there is no exemption, there is no appeals process. Property owners can only raise the rent a maximum of the annual change in the consumer price index up to a maximum of 5%. The average change in CPI over the last 20 years is 2.5 or 2.6%. There is only once in the last 20 years has it been above 5%, and that was in 2022. So for the small property owners in Holyoke, they would actually have to prepare for for rental increases of about 2.5%, which is less than the property tax increase alone, let alone the increase in maintenance, insurance, and all the other utilities that come with owning a property. For any property in Holyoke that is in disrepair and needs to be fixed up to create a welcoming place for people to live, there is no incentive, in fact disincentive, for potential investors or property owners to make those investments in those properties. So I want to make sure that all the facts are clear about this resolution and what it would actually do, especially because the ballot question and the legislation are very different. The legislation only exempts new construction for 5 years. The ballot question exempts new construction for 10 years. The proponent's compromise exempts new construction for 15 years. So adopting a resolution that supports two different measures that are not even what's currently on the table from the proponents of rent control is, I would say, an idea that should probably be revisited. I would also note, because I've heard the conversation about rent control versus rent stabilization, that at the hearings at the State House, both on the legislation and on the ballot question, the supporters of these measures have held up signs all across the room that say, support rent control now. Not rent rent stabilization. The signs say rent control. Thank you.
Ryan, would you like to say anything?
I mean, Connor summed up a lot of it, and I think the biggest piece is in front of you.
Ryan, sorry, could you just introduce yourself again?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Ryan McCullum. Connor went over a lot of it, and I think, I'm somebody was legislative director in the state Senate for some time and for the governor for a little bit. Be mindful of what you're passing. You're passing something that says, therefore be it resolved that we support this piece of legislation and the ballot question. And as Connor has pointed out, there are several areas where the legislation, the proposed ballot question, and now the proposed compromise from the proponents are wildly different. And so supporting 5-year exemption versus a 10-year exemption versus what they're offering now, a 15-year exemption, could just muddy the water. If the legislature is going to do a compromise, they have to do it by July 1st. And so some would say, hey, let's table this. Let's put it aside and see what the legislature, give them some time to do something. There are plenty of folks that are in favor of rent control for very good reasons about people being priced out of their houses and priced out of their apartments, and their homes, right? That's their home, whether they rent or not. But does this help that? And we think it exacerbates it and makes it worse, especially for small landlords. Connor didn't comment on the small landlord piece. We keep hearing about exemptions for small landlords. The exemption is for 4 or fewer units if the landlord lives there. If it's not owner occupied, they're not exempt. So if you own a one unit in Holyoke, but you don't live there, you will be under rent control. And that means you can't raise the rent more than CPI or 5%, whichever is lower, which is usually CPI, from the rent that was due in January of this year. So that also includes people who are renting out to friends and family. If you are renting to somebody below market rate right now, and let's say it's your son, and now him and his wife now have a job and they move to Alaska, if you are renting to them at half of the market rate, that's stuck. And that you have to rent it at that rate plus 2.5% or whatever it is. There are very, very few exemptions, and there's a lot of disincentive for small landlords to stay in the game. What they wind up doing is probably selling, and they will sell to a larger landlord who has the volume to actually still be in there because they have enough units to spread the risk. And now we have less small landlords in the game and larger ones, which we're trying to get rid of. And to the point, I know some of the proponents brought it up, when you do sell those units, they will be a less value because the rent is capped. So the banks look at that and they say, and the assessors look at that and they say, if you can only rent it out for so much, the value of that property is capped. And when you have less property, less value for your properties, that is less tax revenue for you all to spend. So be very, very careful and learn both sides and all what could happen if this happens. Also in the resolution, they said this is the only way to fix this. Clearly it's not. Governor Maura Healey just did a housing bond bill for billions of dollars to push forward supply. We need more supply. We need more raft money. We need to maybe change up where that cliff is, where people are making too much for assistance, but they're on fixed incomes and they don't have enough for rent. There are other things we can do rather than do this. And I think my very last point is, while prices are going up everywhere in all facets of life, somehow folks think that landlords, especially small landlords, the prices for all the things they're doing aren't going up. A bucket of paint costs more to paint that room that needs to be painted. A new dishwasher costs more than it did before. Taxes are more. Insurance is more. So they are going to either break even or lose money renting. And when they lose money, that's when they sell. So I'm here for any other questions. Connor is as well. We appreciate the spirit of trying to help people who can't afford their rent, but we really think it's the wrong way to do it, and it will disincentivize production and hurt supply. Thank you.
Hi, Susan Van Pelt. I live in Ward 4, and I'm a homeowner, but I'm here in support of this resolution that's before you. First of all, I think that it's a non-binding resolution, so it doesn't lock City Council into any very specific thing. It is non-binding, but it just generally tells the state legislature where our community is at and how we're thinking. And I want to strongly be in support of some form of rent stabilization. I think that we've all seen that rent in particular, rent and health, those are the two things that are just going astronomically. I mean, people complain about the price of eggs, the price of gas, but in terms of percentages of people's incomes, it is housing and it is healthcare that are just through the roof, and we have to find ways to bend those costs down. Right now, what we have is the worst of both worlds, where investors are not, owners are not putting good money into their property. They are slapping a coat of paint on things and jacking up the rent astronomically. They are not doing good quality work, as we've seen with the situation on High Street very recently. That's just one example. People are being made homeless because they cannot afford the rents. It is really something that needs to be taken very seriously. And I hear that prices, costs are going up for landlords as well. I would point out that property management is a legitimate job. Investing in your property, taking care of it and managing it, making sure that you have safe, secure, appropriate housing for people. That is a job. Being a passive landlord where you're gouging people for the most that you can get out of them and putting very little into that property or keeping it up, that's just passive income. And that's not right. And I think that something very much needs to be done about that. And then I'll also point out that, we've had ballot initiatives in the past through the state. And what happens usually is there's a whole lot of process in the legislature before it even gets to the ballot. And then it gets to the ballot, and then it gets passed. And then the legislature still has a second bite at that apple. And they still tweak it and come up with regulations that actually make sense and work for a variety of different needs and perspectives. So I would just put that context there as well. So please, I urge you to really look at this and please support it. Thank you.
I see Councilor Rivera's hand up.
Yes, thank you. I think I'll start first by thanking Jeanette Rivera for breaking down the difference between the resolution and the bill that's at the legislature. Trying to couple them together and make them seem like they're both the same, using numbers and data. I mean, the first thing I would say is housing is a human right? People deserve to have a place to live. And it doesn't make sense to me that everything that kind of came out of the opposition's argument is mostly focused on financials. And I fully get that financials is what makes the world go round, but as was mentioned before, housing and Medicare are the largest issues in the country, right? So if we're talking about numbers, then that means all of us are just a number. It means that my life doesn't matter, just like the other person next to you's life doesn't matter, and everyone else that's in that council chamber's life don't matter, as long as you don't have, as long as the number doesn't equate to the right amount for your life to matter, right? So the data is nice, feels hypothetical, I'll be honest with you, and a lot of fear mongering involved with it, because it's not the same exact stuff that's being pushed up there. Yeah, they're probably holding signs for rent control, they're advocating, just like you're here right now. Not on your free time, but advocating, right? You're not here on your free time, you're getting paid to be here. So I fully respect it and I get it. That's part of the game. But in all reality, when it comes to Holyokers and residents, my mom has been paying rent her whole life. And I've seen it and I've witnessed it. I've lived it. What it's like to have the bathroom tall club right next to your little toilet with the sink right there with you with no space to be able to move. And you're paying rent on time every month for the last 15 years. And it's a struggle just to get an upgrade. So then the next point I think for me is, what is small business? What are we talking about small housing landlord? 15, 20, or 2 houses, 3 houses? What are we talking about? Because to me, 15 to 20 is a business. That's not a small landlord. You can call that a small landlord all you want, but not the average person can own 15 properties. So I guess for me, there's a little bit of semantics involved, and I fully get it, but I got elected by the people, not by the businesses, and I'm not getting paid by the businesses. For me, it's to represent the people that elected me, and that's what I'll continue to do. So if everyone's done or whenever they're ready, I'll make a motion to pass the resolution. But when time is ready. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ian Newman. I live in Ward 3. I just want to talk real quickly about the momentum of this. This has been a problem that's been going on for some time. The rents have been going up insanely. Everybody's known that it's happened, and no one really did anything about it. Now there's the momentum to make a change. This proposal is going forward, and a lot of people are in favor of it because change is needed. And I think that we need to take advantage of this momentum. The business class will adapt or it won't. The people might have to sell houses that they rent, but those people have much more padding than the people who they're renting to when they're under fiscal turmoil. And I think that this momentum to help the people who are under the most duress in Holyoke, As the counselor said, that should be the most important thing. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak?
Mr. Chair, you do have a couple more hands on Zoom.
Yeah, go Zoom. I don't see the names though, Jeffrey.
So if you tap participants at the bottom, you'll see the attendees column appear.
Hello. My name is Brenna. I'm from Ward 2. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
I am a homeowner in Ward 2, which is only possible due to some generational inheritance from my ex-spouse. And I feel extremely strongly that we vote to pass this. I completely agree this is non-binding. As a reminder, really, this is frankly, just that, like really cynically, this is frankly very symbolic because in reality, this is not holding city council to anything in particular. So like from that aspect, let me just say it would look very good to your constituents to vote for this. But from a more, from a less cynical aspect, I want to echo what some of the previous people have said, including Councilor Rivera. A small landlord is someone who is in an owner-occupied, fewer than 5 units. That's a small landlord, and that is someone who is excluded. I think the second that you own more than one property and you are not living in, you own more property than you yourself can live in, you are in a totally different socioeconomic position. You are extremely, even if you have issues, you still own multiple properties, and that is a level of stability and wealth that is completely a different universe to the actual renters who are struggling. And, yes, costs go up, but the whole point is that if this is tied to CPI, okay, so it's based on how much costs are going up. And, we know for a fact that landlords' costs are not going up 10, 20, 30%. And, I believe very strongly that housing is a human right, and you shouldn't need to have generational wealth to have a stable place to live. And, I just would urge you to please pass this. I understand that there's, people don't like the term rent control, people are concerned about whatever. It doesn't really matter what words you're using. The underlying issue is that everybody needs a safe place to live. And right now, there are a lot of people who are, and this includes people who are working, who do not make enough money to have a safe place to live. And just, just think about how would you want to be treated if, God forbid, you lost everything, including, one assumes, for the majority of you, your house. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Clara Wagner. Clara, are you there?
Thanks.
Can
Yeah,
you-
Clara
can-
Wagner.
Can,
Yeah,
are
can you
you,
hear me?
can you just, yes, can you tell us where you're from, where you live?
Yeah, I'm in Ward 4.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I live in Ward 4. I work in Holyoke. I work on High Street. I'm a social worker. I'm a homeowner who lives with 4 other people, and we kind of live in an informal co-op. And so just kind of splitting the mortgage plus some other costs, right? Like right now, I think we're paying like 350 something a month. And so I think that's like a helpful number of like how much the actual cost is to house people, at least in this case, right? Just like it's a nice house. And right, like I feel like I haven't heard of rent being under 500 in a second. At least it's not subsidized. And so like, right, the market value rent right now is not the cost it takes to maintain properties. Like it just isn't. I would love to see that math if someone could make that math make sense. And so like instead, it's like the cost of maintaining a property plus a lot of profit that's like largely going to people who already have some degree of wealth. And so like this bill isn't cutting the ability for people to like maintain properties, it's cutting the profit of landlords in order to help people live. And to me, that just feels like a really simple choice, right? If you're choosing between like the ability of people who already have wealth to have more profit and the ability of people to like house their families and have stability, it's really hard to understand the counter arguments for me. And it just feels like to oppose this is to like either have personal interest in wanting the ability to profit and make money or wanting to keep wealthy people happy and not wanting wealthy people to be mad at you. And yeah, as a social worker, I work with systems impacted people. I work with people who have DCF involvement, who are trying to get sober, who are maintaining their recovery. And it's really, really clear over the course of my work that the number one like resilience factor in people being able to successfully heal their trauma, like get sober, get their kids back from DCF, like be able to give back to their community is safe and stable housing. And so this just feels like such an a way to get upstream and actually start making our community a place where more people can have more of a shot at being okay. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan, you had something else to say?
Yeah. If you look at stanza 7 of the resolution, it says a modern rent stabilization policy instituting a statewide limit on rent increases has been proposed as an initiative petition for the November 2026 ballot. And the state legislature is also considering legislation to enable local option rent stabilization. So what you're voting in favor of is supporting both the ballot question and the legislation. Whether you call it rent control or not, that's what this resolution does. It does both. I don't know if Connor's still on. He has an example of himself being an accidental landlord because they moved and they had an apartment, and it's a great story about how not all landlords are wealthy. Some landlords lose money on a unit that they inherited. Sometimes they lose money because of the market. It's not only rich people have properties or happen to have properties, and it is more expensive than CPI because taxes themselves, when you raise taxes on a property 30%, CPI is 2.8%. So it does cost more. Insurance goes up. Those things aren't factored into CPI when you're actually a landlord. So, and I appreciate where everybody's coming from. We think the math doesn't math, and if it passed, it would be more harmful to the people we're trying to protect because smaller landlords get out, larger landlords are the only ones that come in to fill that void. And we're trying to get the larger landlords out. This isn't going to be helpful. You'll have more absentee landlords and have issues going on that we saw last week in Holyoke. And also you'll have landlords or developers who see a 5 or 6 unit property in squalor who would make an investment to bring it up to code and to make a nice place for people to live. They're not going to do so if they can't recoup some of the money back for their work. They'll go to Connecticut, they'll go somewhere else and do those projects. They'll let those places in squalor sit in squalor because it's not worth it to do so.
Brent, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to reply to that, couple of points. Number one, we already have plenty of landlords who are not doing anything, as we saw on High Street. Sorry, I just had a momentary, we already have plenty of landlords who aren't doing anything. And just to be clear, you have sort of said the quiet part out loud by saying they'll go to other places, they'll go to other places where they can gouge people and push people out of their homes and communities. Like, you've basically, just to be clear, he has said the quiet part, he has said what their goal is, what the landlords and this coalition of property owners and all of that is to make the most money possible, regardless of who they are hurting. And if we stop them from hurting people in Massachusetts, they will go hurt people somewhere else. So what I heard is, well, don't you want us to not hurt people, like, don't you want us to hurt people in Massachusetts as opposed to Connecticut? Like, that's ridiculous and honestly offensive that you think that that is persuasive. I understand one person can be an accidental landlord, you know, small people, whatever. The whole point is that that's not what we're talking about. You know, I just want to be super clear, like, we are talking about the big landlords. We are talking about the property management companies. We are talking about all of the places, even the small landlords who leave, you know, places completely unmaintained and then, you know, like High Street. So I just want to be clear. I think also, you know, acting as though there are so many investors who really just want to, as you know, bring Holyoke up out of, as you said, quote, squalor, which honestly offensive, you know, is honestly sort of funny. Like, can you show me a list of 10 actual, like, I just truly, there isn't that demand. And if there is, you know, I can't believe that you're trying to say that, oh, there is this demand, but like, if we pass rent control or rent stabilization or whatever you want to call it, if we pass this helping people stay in their communities act, whether it's a ballot question or, you know, through the state house, which I don't, that's neither here nor there. The idea that, like, passing this will hurt people overall, honestly, show me data, because I will tell you, one of the only pieces of data about the quote-unquote harms of rent control is, it's very funny, actually. It's based on a very specific period in San Francisco, when San Francisco proper repealed rent control or rent stabilization or whatever. Or no, excuse me, implemented it, wrong direction. But the thing is that they exempted major renovations such that basically the way that they were able to kind of get around the rent stabilization was to basically do a major remodel and bring it from a one unit to a 2 unit, or from a 2 unit to a 3 unit, or whatever. And then basically it was no longer like applicable. And oh, look at that, rent control isn't effective because look, in San Francisco it's so not effective. Look at how expensive rent is. It's like, yeah, because San Francisco had an absolutely ridiculous like bylaw, like exemption that let people get around the rule. I just want to be clear, like, there isn't data showing rent control harms the economy, and the quote unquote data there is deeply, deeply flawed.
Thank you. Madam? Your name, por favor.
My name is Deborah Barbosa, and I'm
Turn the
from.
microphone on, por favor.
My name is Deborah Barbosa, and I'm from Ward 6. I know.
Español?
¿Sí?
Sí.
Pero I don't know how will you understand me. Okay. ¿Verdad? Yo quería también contar mi historia y ya le pasé mi documentación con mi historia, pero creo que más allá de todas las historias tristes que se han dicho aquí, lo más importante, ¿verdad?, es cómo la gente está satisfaciendo las necesidades de pagar la renta. Con esto lo que quiero decir es, ¿verdad?, que muchas veces tenemos que recurrir a otras fuentes de ingreso para poder subsistir, pagar nuestros biles, la luz, el agua, el seguro médico, el seguro del carro, la gasolina, la comida. Pero realmente lo que está pasando es que nos estamos peleando entre nosotros porque todo el mundo necesita dinero, como los landlords, yo los entiendo. Pero la realidad es que más arriba de nosotros están estas corporaciones que son los que están recogiendo el dinero de estos pequeños landlords a través de los bancos, a través de los intereses, a través de los malos salarios. Muchas corporaciones de esta gente traen empleados de otras áreas pagándoles una miseria. En su país ese dinero es mucho dinero, pero aquí eso no sirve para nada. y tú tienes que pagar una renta, tienes muchos requisitos para tu rental y a veces te tiras en la calle. Simplemente la gente lo que quiere es que lo que están necesitando hacer es comprar buscando otras fuentes de vivir. Mucha gente tiene que recurrir a dejar de trabajar para poder cualificar para los Wincos. Mucha gente tiene que vivir en su carro. La mayoría de la gente vive en shelters porque son couch shelters. Yo no tengo hogar, pero yo vivo con mi mamá. Y literalmente es porque yo no puedo subsistir los gastos de una casa. Entiendo que sí se debería de pasar la medida, ¿verdad?, para que se haga la pregunta, porque es una forma de ayudar a la comunidad a manejarse mejor en cuanto a economía, porque si la renta sigue subiendo, lamentablemente la gasolina también, los seguros también y todo, porque la verdadera historia es que las corporaciones lo que están es chupándonos, porque ellos son cada vez más grandes y nos siguen exigiendo más, y cuando ya tú no puedes dar más, entonces te conviertes en un paciente y entonces se siguen succionando a través del seguro y ahora tienes que pagar seguro o simplemente le cobra al gobierno porque tú no tienes dinero suficiente para pagar el seguro, y se convierte en un ciclo vicioso que ya las corporaciones están dedicadas a hacer, y es como si fuéramos nosotros unos esclavos ahora.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Any other comments? Sonia, would you like to make a comment?
Richard.
You got to say who you are and where you're from.
Good evening. My name is Sonia Ramos. I'm from Ward 1. Thank you for giving me this moment to speak. I'm here to speak from my heart. We all want the American dream. It's not what every person has the right for happiness. I just saw an image coming here. It was an elderly fragile lady. She was in the street with her luggage. Maybe she has this story. She won't be able to speak up, but we do. We are here. We not just love Holyoke. We want to thrive here. We want to live here. We want to pursue happiness. I've been living here for the past almost 5 years. I started behind this city hall in a shelter. Now I live, I was transitioned to another place, beautiful place, but it's never happiness. If you had to manage rent and other things that you used to put on the side to make sure you pay your rent, because if you don't, you have eviction. If you don't, there's protocols. There's always something to try to get you to find a way to keep you out of your home, a place that you call home, our American dream. I'm a Latina, as a woman, that I love being here with my community, and I've been speaking up because I decide that down here, people doesn't listen. But if we come here, in front of everybody, and this is justice, have the dignity to live, freedom, and not just think about, if I don't pay my rent today, I cannot afford it. Right now, rent and how much you earn is not the same as the 1950s. There's a lot of races, there's a lot of food, gasoline, your rent. My priority is my family too. My priority is my land here, making a difference. That's what I stand here and I said, vote, yes. Give us the right to everybody else just to vote, yes or no. That's all we're asking. This is just the beginning. This is our American dream. Hope, dignity, respect, and love for each other, not just finances. We do need finances, but we don't have the family that live here in Holyoke won't be able to have a community that walks outside and sees that old lady walking in the streets alone. And that's what I'm gonna do next. When I get out of here, I wanna see that lady and I tell her, there's hope. Holyoke is a place to hope, a place that we could build, not just American dream, dignity and respect. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands. So as the chair, I'm gonna.
I think there is a hand up that I can see anyways, and I want to say, too. Izzy, yeah.
Izzy, can I go before you?
Yeah, it was just whatever people are ready to make a motion to pass the resolution, but that's, go ahead, you guys do your thing. Cause I'm not there, you know what I'm saying, so I got my hand up, don't worry about it.
Nicole had her hand up. Would you like to say something, Nicole?
Good evening. Yes. I want to say something really quick. I've been a renter not long ago, and now I am both a homeowner and a landlord. So I can see both sides of this issue, and I know firsthand how hard it is for families to keep up with the rising rents, especially those single income households. But at the same time, I also know property taxes are increasing, insurances have increased, and so as well as maintenance costs and utilities for these property owners. I hope we can find some sort of balance, right, to protect tenants from all these unreasonable rent increases, while also, ensuring that these responsible landlords can continue to maintain their properties. I know the proposal does say the difference between the small owner occupied landlords versus the corporate landlords, but we can't have this conversation if we're not including, housing quality, the maintenance, tenant safety. So if we're gonna ask tenants to pay high rent, I think we should also expect the landlords to provide safe and well-maintained housing for everyone. That's all I have to say.
Counselor Sullivan.
Counselor Rivera?
Izzy, did you have something else to say?
Aside from this motion to pass the resolution, I want to say thank you to everyone that's there. Thank you to Nicole for speaking up too as well. As a renter and a landowner too as well, totally recognize that. And thank you to Deborah and the lady that just spoke. Your stories literally speak highly and clearly about capitalism and how it's evolved over time and how generational wealth hasn't necessarily trickled down as the ideology of capitalism would make you think. When we're talking about data, and I'm playing softball at the same time, so I apologize. But yeah, specifically for me, it's that. But yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you, Counselor Sullivan.
Mr. Chair, you do have another hand still on Zoom. I don't know if you saw it.
Claire, are you there? Hello, Claire?
Hello. Hi. Hi, I'm here.
Claire from where?
Claire from Ward 6.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. I'm coming into this meeting late. I just want to give my appreciation to everybody for giving this issue due consideration. I wanted to chime in, not only to point out that the resolution limits, but does not limits increases. It doesn't get rid of them altogether. And so I think that it is a middle ground solution. And I want to remind everybody that when you're considering this motion, that it is not who's contributing to any campaigns in the future. It's not where you're profiting elsewhere, but it's what the people are asking for that needs everyone's attention. And because I know that that can be confusing. So I just want to leave it at that, and I want to thank you all again for giving this matter due consideration. Thank you.
Counselor Sullivan, thank you, Claire.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge that there's a lot of injustices in the whole system, right? And what we really are addressing and need to put more attention, more focus on is, number one, the supply we have of affordable housing. We've made some strides there. We need to continue to push that. I think the city, the council has done a good job, and to bring in more good-paying jobs and increase wages across the board. That's the real solution, not trying to Yeah, I've heard about the High Street thing, and that's atrocious. But that's got to be addressed not through rent control. Would have done nothing about that. That's got to be addressed by more aggressive actions from our Board of Health, from our building department, from our fire department, across the board. All right, these are completely different issues that aren't going to be solved through rent control. And we have a lot of very, very, very good investors that have come into Holyoke that are putting a lot of money into properties to increase that housing stock that we have. And I fear that something like this would discourage them from the good work they're doing already. So until I see what a final version that would come out of the House or the Senate or the state would look like, I really can't. To me, this resolution is just, it's a token gesture and a blank check with no real solution involved. Councilor Devine.
Councilor Devine, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know about everybody else, but I'm extremely confused. I love the resolution. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And then the rent control ballot question, has that been finalized yet?
No.
No. And I don't mean to embarrass you or anything, but for some reason, I thought you were here about the resolution. Are you here for something totally different between the resolution and rent control?
Sure. Because the resolution literally points out supporting the ballot question, that's why I'm here. And I read the stanzas that speak to the ballot question in November of 2026. So voting in favor of this resolution means you're in support of the ballot question and Senator Gomez's pending legislation at the State House, which are different. And I mean, that's what it is. So the ballot question, the wording's finalized. July 1st, the SJC is actually going to opine and have a ruling whether or not it's constitutional and for the ballot before July 1st. And that's when the Secretary of State, if it's found constitutional, that's when the Secretary of State will print out the ballots that will have this question on it.
The question being rent control.
The question being a one-size-fits-all rent control for the entire state. That means you can't raise rent higher than CPI or 5%, whichever is lower. And there's other things that we could go through that I've kind of been going through tonight. But that's the ballot question. And in November, voters will vote yes or no on that question. So that's in the resolution that the Holyoke City Council supports the ballot question as well as the legislation.
I definitely want to ask Mr. Chairman that question because I read your resolution. I didn't take it that way. And that's why I'm confused.
And just as another point
Thank
of
you.
information, the second round of signature gathering hasn't happened yet. So that isn't complete.
Sure.
So,
but if they don't get enough signatures, it won't be on the ballot.
That's correct.
They'll get signatures to
Correct.
get beyond the ballot. Yeah.
But, so it's not finalized.
No, it's not finalized, but whether or not, you have to assume that they're going to get the signatures and that the SJC is going to find it legal if you're going to support it in November, right? So that resolution says you support the ballot question of November 2026.
Mr. Chairman, where does it say that on your resolution?
It doesn't say that.
I didn't think so. Thank you.
So where I read the seventh stanza in that resolution, I can get my phone again.
I got it right here.
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. A modern rent stabilization policy. This is what it says. Excuse me. A modern rent stabilization policy instituting a statewide limit on rent increases has been proposed as an initiative petition for the November 2026 ballot.
So an initiative petition for the 2026 ballot is the rent control ballot question.
That hasn't made it yet.
And that's non-binding.
That's correct.
Yeah, so your resolution's non-binding, but if you vote in favor of it, people can say the Holyoke City Council is in favor of the 2026 ballot question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now for the chairman's segue into what Ryan just said. I came to Holyoke, Massachusetts in 1974. The first 9 years of my life, I lived on a Native American Indian reservation in New Mexico, northern New Mexico, up past Gallup. We didn't have running water. We didn't have electricity. We didn't have indoor plumbing. We had to go to the outhouse. I was raised by a single mother with 4 boys and a girl. We wound up in the projects in New Mexico until I was 14 years old. At 14 years old, I came to Holyoke, Massachusetts on a Greyhound bus by myself. My grandmother put me on the bus. I got to Holyoke, had a temporary stay at an apartment on Sargent Street and right to the Tefford Apartments, 48 North Summer Street. So to say I know what poor is an understatement. Beyond poverty, below poverty, below poverty. And then I became a homeowner. I went into the military, got out, came back to Holyoke in 1991. I bought a home. I lived in a home for 29 years. I decided I didn't want to take care of it anymore. I became a renter. For all my life, I've had one thing to think about besides not being homeless, was that housing should be a human right. And the opponents to the ballot question are spending $30 million to fight this issue. Where what good would come of that money if they used it right now helping the tenants that they're fighting against? How much energy and how much good things could happen with that $30 million? You turn on your television set, you see an advertisement for the opponents of this measure. Every day, maybe hourly, you see it. You won't see that from groups like Neighbor to Neighbor. Just as a point of information, last city council meeting, we had public comment. Every ward except for one ward of renters came in this, and not one of them said that they were opposed to this resolution. All of them spoke in favor of this resolution. Not one person came that night and said they were against this resolution. My point is, there's been a couple of people that have said they're against the resolution, but those people are paid lobbyists for the opponents of this resolution and the rent control. So I'm completely in favor of this resolution because housing should be a human right and not taken over by the bureaucracy, corporate. I don't want to even say the words that I want to say now because I don't want to get kicked off as being the chair. But I'm a proponent of this resolution for life reasons, not because I'm taking on greed, but for life reasons, my lifelong life reasons. And that's my only thing I have to say about it.
She was before me.
Thank you for that, Counselor. I really appreciate the context you gave. And I just wanted to offer some breaking news. The Springfield City Council unanimously passed their resolution tonight. So it was for the bill, to be fully transparent, but including Boston passed the ballot. We have East Hampton, Greenfield. You will not be alone. Just want to state that.
Okay, just real quick. I'll say it real quick. Before I lose my mind, I got to say this.
Go ahead.
This is a resolution. We're not writing a constitutional amendment. This is non-binding.
Sure.
This is just the voice of the people. And last Tuesday, the voice of the people came into the people's chamber and expressed themselves.
Sure.
And all I'm saying is, we're not changing Massachusetts history by a resolution from the Holyoke City Council. We're telling the legislature, this is what people want. Thank you.
Yeah, I fully appreciate that. I love your story. My father's a Vietnam vet. He's born in Holyoke, poor as well. Had a hard time renting, interracial couple, and he wasn't even being able to rent until one time he asked my mother to go in, and my mother went in, and somehow they wanted to rent to them, right? So my father was getting no's as a Vietnam vet because he was black, and they were redlining, and when he sent my white mother in, they were able to rent. My grandfather, World War II vet, wasn't able to buy a home on the GI Bill. They weren't letting black people exercise their right in the GI Bill. So I understand generational wealth, I understand poverty, I get it. And I fully appreciate that, all of it. I get that it's only a resolution. I'm not here gangbusters, I'm here just to speak what we think. I shared information on what we think rent control will do and how it won't help. You're right, it's not gonna be the end of the world if you guys pass it tonight and then pass it tomorrow night. There are powers that be that are gonna maybe compromise or what. The Springfield City Council did pass a unanimous, I just got that text as well, but they were very specific in their resolution that it was for the legislation. They did not commingle the resolution with the ballot question. Okay, that's just, and thank you for being transparent on that. They were saying it was for the legislation. So a resolution telling the legislature to get off their butt and do something about rent is a lot less specific than what you all are doing. So appreciate all the time, and I appreciate everything you all have to say as well.
Thank you.
And also, I was pretty mischaracterized in what I said. I didn't say Holyoke is a city of squalor. I was talking about 811 High Street and specifically what happened. I love Holyoke. I got mischaracterized multiple times by that person, but I'll let that go.
Thank you, Ryan. Is there anybody else to speak about this? Now that we're in the bewitching hour, I'll accept a motion from the city council.
Motion to pass the resolution.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor? Oh, we'll take a vote. I'm sorry. Councilor Sullivan.
No.
Councilor Masonette.
Yes.
Councilor Rivera.
Yes.
Councilor Purcell, by all means, yes. Having said that, our resolution is passed, and we're going to send it to the full city council for tomorrow evening. And thank you all for participating tonight. Your thoughts were well taken. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you. Is this the woman who was speaking?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. You're gonna bring that up. Wasn't ready for that.
I can make a motion for that.
Okay, that's good. We got another motion.
I'd like to make a motion to remove item number 9 from the table.
Second.
Second.
Can you speak on it?
Yep, so this is just a letter from Assistant City Solicitor Jane Mantaleski. It's a notice of sale for 285 Main Street. I'd make a motion it was received.
There's a motion to receive item number 9 from former City Solicitor Jane Mantalowski for the notice of sale of 285 Main Street. I'll second that motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Do we have to do a roll call on that, Jeffrey?
I think you're all right with that one.
Thank you. I'll entertain another motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion too.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Good night.
Have a good night, everybody. Thank you all.